we're going to do some right angle weave. And I know this is a stitch I think most people have the biggest problems with. I'm going to use two colors of beads to try and help you see how the beads lay, because there's a definite horizontal and vertical bead in right angle weave. Okay, well, we'll get started. I'm going to put a little stopper bead on first. Just go through a little bead twice so our beads don't fall off. And I'm going to add alternate beads of each color, and I'm adding 4. So slide those down, and we're going to go through all 4 beads again so that they go into a circle. You can see as the thread pulls in, it makes a circle. I'm going to go back through, not the stopper bead, the first 2 and then the 3rd bead. Now, as you can see, my blue beads are going to be the horizontal line, and the pink beads are going to be the vertical line. So now I have my first stitch. Second stitch, I only need to add 3 beads because I'm going to use this bead. So I need my vertical bead, which is pink, my horizontal bead, which is blue, and my vertical bead, which is pink. And I have my other blue horizontal. So we go in through the horizontal, the opposite direction that the thread is, because we're going to make that little circle. You see the bead, the thread makes a circle, and as we pull it in, we have our second stitch. And we need to step up through the vertical and the next horizontal. Okay. All right, now our bead is out of the top. With right angle weave, your thread will exit opposite directions, top, bottom, as you go through. I think that's what confuses a lot of people. Okay, so we need a vertical, a horizontal, and a vertical bead. Now we're going to come up through so that our thread makes that circle. And that's the key on this. If you remember your thread has got to form a circle, then it'll stop you going through the wrong direction. We're going to go through our vertical and our horizontal beads. Okay. All right, another stitch. Our vertical, you see my thread's coming out from the bottom of the bead this time. So we need our vertical, our horizontal, and our vertical through our horizontal. Okay, and step up. And that is your right angle weave. So that's one row. Gets a little bit different when you have to do more rows. So as we turn, we just turn the work over, and we want to step up to be coming out of the vertical bead. So as we come out of the vertical bead, we're going to just do, we've got the vertical bead this time, so now we're going to add a horizontal, a vertical, and another horizontal. Because of course we've got our vertical that we're going to go through and make our stitch. Okay, so now we have our second row. First stitch of the second row. We just step up through the horizontal, and now we have 2 beads already for the next stitch. We have the horizontal we're coming out of, and we have a vertical that we can join into. So we only need to add the vertical bead and the horizontal bead through the vertical and up through the horizontal. And you see that circle forming, and in it goes. And this time we have to go through to step up, because we need to come out of the bead that we need to add. We have 1 bead, so we'll come step through the vertical, we'll step through the horizontal that we're going to use for our next stitch, and also the vertical that we're going to use for the next stitch. Okay, so we're just adding 2 beads now, the horizontal and the vertical. And we're going to come down through the horizontal. Note if you've got a vertical bead on, the pink bead, we're going through the blue. I really suggest when you're learning this stitch to use the 2 colours, because it really does help you distinguish one bead from another. You know, so that you're much easier to see which way you're going. Okay, on this stitch we only have to step up through the 1 bead. So when you're doing the second row and subsequent rows, you're alternating between stepping up through 1 bead or 3 beads. Think there are 4 beads in the stitch, so between 2 stitches you're going to step up through 4 beads, if that makes sense. Okay, vertical, horizontal, through the vertical, up the horizontal, circle stitch. All right, circle it, and we're just going to step up through our vertical bead because we're at the end of the row. So I'm going to turn the work over, and here we're going to start, as we're coming out of the vertical again, we're going to go again, horizontal, vertical, horizontal, through the opposite direction of the thread so that we make that circle, 3 beads to start the row, and then up 1, 2, 3, and 4 through the vertical. Okay, ready to put the horizontal in, horizontal and vertical, down through the horizontal bead and step up through the vertical and the next horizontal bead. Okay, so now we're coming out of the top, add our horizontal bead, our vertical bead, pink bead, vertical, blue bead, horizontal. Go through the vertical and the horizontal. And step up through the vertical, through the horizontal, and the next vertical. And this does this because, as you'll notice, you're changing direction with every stitch. So for this last stitch, we add our horizontal, because if you're coming out of the pink bead, the vertical bead, you need to add the blue bead horizontal. Then you add the vertical. Come in through the horizontal and through the vertical. There's our circle forming, and in it goes. And we're going to step up, and we would step through the vertical to be in the next spot for our next row. And that's all there is to it. It's confusing. Play the video a few times. I know people have a hard time with it, but if you do the beads and use different colors for vertical and horizontal, it makes it a lot easier to learn the stitch. And you may just have to practice this stitch a lot before you get it down. Remember there's the vertical lines and the horizontal lines. Okay, now I'm going to show you modified right angle weave, RawMraw. And the first stitch is the same as you would go for regular raw. So we're going to add our 4 beads, vertical and horizontal, and we'll slide those babies down. Okay, and we're going to go through them again just like the first stitch of raw. Okay, now I'm going to go step up back, so I'm coming out of that top vertical. Okay, so there's our first stitch. but we're not coming out of the same bead. With regular raw, we'd come through this bead. With RawMraw, we stay out of the top bead because we're going to add a row of peyote in while we're doing this right angle weave. So we're going to show you in silver our peyote stitch. So we're going to have one bead which will be the peyote stitch, and then we're going to add the 3 stitches that would make up our raw stitch. So we would need vertical, horizontal, vertical. And the same way that you would come up, you're coming up through the horizontal bead, and your thread is coming out there now. Now you're going to skip the silver bead, your peyote stitch bead, and come straight through the vertical bead. So you can see that that silver bead sits right in between. We do that again. Peyote bead, vertical bead, horizontal and vertical. Up through the horizontal, thread between the peyote bead and the vertical, and through the vertical. No change of direction here, which is great, because if that's what gets you a peyote with the right angle weave, then this is just a wonderful way of doing it. So there we go, we've got our peyote bead, vertical, horizontal, vertical. Up through the horizontal, skip the peyote bead and through the vertical. Peyote bead, vertical bead, horizontal bead, vertical bead. Up through the horizontal. Skip the peyote bead and through the vertical. Okay. So you see how nicely they sit in there. Now we're going to switch over to peyote stitch. So as we turn, and we're just going to add like you would for a regular peyote. Some more of those over. And you can see going through those peyote beads, you make a really nice, smooth change into peyote stitch. And you will have it as odd count peyote because you've always got this end bead with the right angle weave. So you would make your turn. So you're going to go through the vertical, make sure that bead sits right up on top, and then you have to turn. So you're going to go through the next peyote bead and the next vertical, pull that through, and then go through the top peyote, the second peyote, and the next vertical, so on a diagonal there to turn. And then you're turned and you're ready for your next row of peyote. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can see that nice transition from right angle weave into peyote using RawMraw.